Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are breaking down something absolutely huge today, a monumental shift in the healthcare industry. We're talking about the newly finalized multi-billion-dollar merger between Aster and Quality Care. But, we aren't just here to look at dry balance sheets today. We're going to unpack the fascinating, honestly kind of counterintuitive strategy behind this entire union. It's basically a massive, calculated bet on non-metro cities to drive the next massive wave of healthcare growth. So if you want to understand exactly where the future of medical infrastructure is heading, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the big question. Where is the next massive frontier for healthcare? Think about that for a second. If you were to ask any traditional healthcare executive this exact question, maybe a decade ago, the answer was practically scripted, right? They'd immediately tell you it's in the heart of our most bustling, heavily populated megacities. They'd point straight to towering skyscrapers and prime, ultra-expensive real estate. But the landscape is shifting radically right now. And the real answer today? Well, it might actually surprise you.
The answer is right here, not in the big cities. Seriously. The traditional hubs are no longer the undisputed kings of rapid healthcare expansion. Instead, the real frontier, that sweet spot where totally untapped potential meets surging, undeniable demand, lies way out beyond the city limits of our major metropolitan areas. We are literally pivoting away from the concrete jungles to look at a completely different map of opportunity.
Section 1, the mega healthcare merger.
To really understand why this geographic shift is happening, we first have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what just occurred. This is a strategic union that is sending absolute ripples throughout the entire industry. Aster plus Quality Care equals a completely new healthcare giant. We're talking about combining thousands of beds across dozens and dozens of facilities. Now, normally, when two insanely resource-rich entities like this combine, you'd expect them to just double down on the most expensive, high-profile markets in the world. But instead, they are taking this colossal corporate weight and focusing it almost entirely on a highly calculated, totally counterintuitive expansion strategy that looks outward rather than inward. And it really comes down to the sheer power of these two specific healthcare giants pooling their resources. By combining their financial capital, their deep medical expertise, and their proven operational playbooks, they aren't just surviving the current market. They're essentially building a massive engine designed specifically to drive regional growth. Because of this merger, they now have the serious capital required to build premium infrastructure in places where, honestly, no single company could easily afford to go it alone. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, the metro market saturation. So why on earth would two massive companies just ignore the biggest cities? Well, it all comes down to metro saturation. This happens when traditional healthcare giants relentlessly fight over the exact same major metropolitan areas. The old, honestly, kind of lazy strategy was pretty simple. Just build massive, shiny hospitals only in major metros where the highest concentration of wealth already existed. The problem with that? Well, every single corporate healthcare chain had the exact same idea. It led to fierce, insanely expensive competition, skyrocketing real estate costs, and ultimately, severely limited new growth. Long story short, the big cities are full. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes the strategic choice to leave that incredibly competitive space for a totally new frontier. Aster and Quality Care are making a very distinct choice here. The metro markets have basically become a red ocean, highly competitive, totally saturated, with everyone fighting tooth and nail for the exact same pool of patients. By pivoting to non-metro markets, they're entering this massive, wide-open blue ocean of untapped demand and rising incomes. They are deliberately choosing to leave the saturated battleground behind for a highly lucrative new frontier. Section 3. Betting on non-metro cities. This pivot is the absolute core of their new strategy. And just to be super clear here, when we say non-metro, we aren't talking about remote, isolated villages in the middle of nowhere. Not at all. We are specifically targeting Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets. These are rapidly rising regional hubs boasting incredible economic expansion and serious, undeniable demographic growth. These thriving, bustling, smaller cities are practically screaming out for premium healthcare services. So the crucial point is, what actually validates this massive corporate bet? Well, it's kind of a perfect storm of economics and demographics. First, these regions have rapidly rising middle-class populations who actually now have the disposable income to pay for quality care. Second, there is a massive amount of untapped healthcare demand simply because patients just haven't had the local options before.
And third, there's a glaring lack of existing corporate hospital infrastructure to serve them. So the patients are there, the money is there, but the hospitals are not. Well, until now, that is.
Section 4. Reshaping regional care.
At the end of the day, a merger of this scale doesn't just shift corporate profits around. It fundamentally alters how human beings actually access life-saving care. They're executing this in 3 very deliberate steps. Target high-growth Tier 2 and 3 markets, build premium corporate infrastructure locally, and then completely decentralize critical healthcare services from the big cities. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact. Think about what this means on a human level. Patients no longer have to travel 5 agonizing hours to some saturated megacity just to get a complex surgery or see a specialist. Building quality infrastructure outside of major cities radically improves healthcare access for millions of people. It is quite literally a game changer.
Which naturally leaves us with one vital overarching question. As Aster and Quality Care successfully look to the regions, will the rest of the industry follow? We've just seen exactly how they're escaping metro saturation to capture this massive, untapped demographic. If this new healthcare giant proves that the highest growth and honestly the deepest impact lie outside the big cities, we might be on the absolute verge of a total geographical restructuring of modern medicine. It's a fascinating trend for sure, and we will absolutely be watching closely to see how the broader market responds. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.